Good evening. Welcome to tonight's event, celebrating the launch of the very first Animorphs graphic novel. My name is Melissa Poston, and I am the children's buyer and event coordinator for The Novel Neighbor, a full-service independent bookstore located in St. Louis, Missouri. Before I bring on tonight's guest, I wanted to tell you about a few upcoming events that you might be interested in. Tomorrow night, we are thrilled to welcome Olympic gold medalist and World Cup champion Abby Wambach for the launch of the Young People's edition of her New York Times bestselling book, Wolfpack. And that event is at 6 o'clock Central Standard Time. On Thursday, we hope you'll join us for a conversation with actor and author Henry Winkler and his co-author Lynn Oliver in celebration of Book 2 in their latest series for kids, Alien Superstar. That event starts at 7 p.m. CST. And then this Sunday at 4 o'clock, we have an event called Graphics Con, which is 4 graphic novelists. Varian Johnson, who has a new one out called Twins. Gail Galligan, who's the current illustrator and adapter for The Babysitter's Club. Maria Scriven, who wrote Nat Enough. She'll be here for book 2 in that series, Forget Me Nat. And Tom Engelberger, the author of The Strange Case of Origami Yoda. He is here for the very first Geronimo Stilton graphic novel, The Sewer Rat Stink. But tonight we are here to celebrate Animorphs, and I'm going to bring on our special guest, Chris Grine. He is the author, illustrator, and colorist of the graphic novel Time Shifters, and he has an upcoming series called Secrets of Camp Whatever that debuts in March. Chris lives near Kansas City, Missouri with his family, and I hope you'll all join me in welcoming him now. Hi, Chris.
Hey.
How are you tonight?
I'm good. I didn't know you were going to have Henry Winkler on, though. I'm kind of jealous.
We are going to have Henry Winkler on, and I'm not even doing that event. That's my friend Steph is doing that. So yeah, we're going to have the Fonz right here, just like this. So
that's awesome.
So congratulations. It's your launch day. Happy book birthday.
Thank you.
So I would love to know a little bit about how you got to graphic novels as a career and how you got to be the author, illustrator of Animorphs in particular.
Okay. So I'd always wanted to do comic books. Like as far back as I can remember, I'd always wanted to do comics. I was always, if you would ask my parents, they would have always told you I was always working on my comics, whether it was middle school or high school. And then when I went to college, I got my bachelor's of fine arts. So I decided it was probably time to, in my mind, at least, to try to do something that made some money. So like as an illustrator or whatever, because I had perceived in the back of my mind that comic books were maybe, for younger, not me, like it wasn't something I should do as a career, right? It's like, it's time to grow up. But so it turns out that was wrong. So when I actually had a full-time job, what I did with my spare time was I started getting involved with comics again. And I had some time to actually work on some pitches and just randomly send them out to publishers. I didn't know anything about what I was doing. All I knew is that I wanted to do comics, and I had some free time to kind of dedicate to that. So that's what I did. I just started sending things out, and I got lucky and found my first book was Chicken Hair. And from there, I've just kind of been involved with mostly graphic novels. I've done a few smaller comic, like single issue comic type things that were then collected into like a trade that I didn't write. I was just hired to do the art for that. And then so eventually it led to me getting Chicken Hair picked up at Scholastic, which then turned into, I got another book, Time Shifters, with Scholastic. And so I think when the Animorphs thing came up, they reached out to me and asked me if I'd be interested in working on an adaptation of a book series that they had. And my first thought was, and I think I've told this story a few times, so apologies to anybody who's heard me say this already, but I vividly remember thinking, I don't do adaptations of other people's work. I kind of do my own stories. It's my own thing. And then I said, just tell me about the project. What's the project? Because they didn't say what it was yet. They were just seeing if I was interested. And then when they responded that it was Animorphs, I spit an entire mouthful of coffee onto my laptop, which was bad. It took a little while to clean up, but I was so excited because while I hadn't grown up being a big fan of Animorphs, it came out around 95, 96, right when I was graduating high school, going to college, and I just didn't have the time, or I didn't have a lot of friends who were reading it that could have been like, hey man, you need to check this out. I was aware of it because those covers were so iconic, and I always had it in the back of my mind that I need to read this series. There's 54 books, and spinoffs. I really need to get into
commitment.
Yeah, it was exciting. So when the opportunity came up, I was like, I absolutely want to do this. So that's kind of how it happened.
I love that story. That and I think that, looking at your art in Time Shifters and looking at your art in Animorphs, I think you really were quite a natural fit for that story. Your art adapted and went along so well with like the darkness of Animorphs, but you also bring this real humanity to the characters. I just think it's a beautiful job.
Thank you.
So we were talking a little bit before we signed on about the enthusiastic fandom that Animorphs has had for its entire existence. So what's it like to sort of be the new guy in the fandom and, have all of these expectations and all of these questions from this fan base?
It's intimidating and a little overwhelming, but I gotta say, I've made a point of trying to interact with the fans, especially on Twitter or Instagram or wherever, I'm normally at, but over like the last year or so. And it's just been so warm and welcoming. And unlike a lot of other fandoms, and I hate to throw Star Wars under the bus because I'm a huge Star Wars fan, but like that can get pretty heated and nasty, where I feel like when people have a question or an argument about Animorphs, it's like it becomes like this higher level conversation people are having that I can't even hardly follow. It becomes so scientific but everybody's being very professional about it, and people are like, I don't know, I just feel like everybody's entitled to their opinion and nobody gets angry if it changes and stuff. So I was already feeling this is going to be fun. Like this, I really love the community. I love these people. They have kept it alive for so long. I didn't want to be the guy that came in and ruined it all.
No pressure.
Yeah, like it was just a little bit of pressure on that. So I hope that they're all happy with what they're reading today. And I've heard from a lot of people who are very happy. And I just want to make sure that I'm giving them what they've been hoping for so long. And I know I can't please everybody, but I did my best to try to cross off as many boxes as I could. So.
Well, I mean, I read a bunch of your Reddit Ask Me Anything today, and generally the fans just seemed excited and happy with the art that they'd seen, and the stuff that you've shared on social media. It really, I feel like a lot of those fandoms for stuff that's gone, like the Firefly fandom. I don't know if you ever watched Firefly, like fandoms that continue for things that are out of print or had short-lived runs. They just seem so affectionate and welcoming. And that was sort of the whole mood I saw in that Ask Me Anything, which just made me really happy for you too.
Yeah, I love that. It was really fun.
So so I know you're a massive fan of a number of things. Your social media says you're a toy collector. So I brought a couple of my friends. I brought my vintage Buffy and my Doctor Strange bobblehead here. What kind of toys do you collect?
Lots of stuff from the 80s, kind of when I was a kid, but like I don't know how well this is gonna work. But I got all my like vintage Star Wars stuff.
Wow.
Here. Of course, I've had to buy them all on eBay because unfortunately, my parents thought that when I was about 11 that I was too old for toys and it was time for them to be gone. So one weekend while I was gone, they threw away all of my Transformers and He-Man and Star Wars, all that stuff. And I was one of those kids that never shared my toys. Like I didn't want anybody to scratch them. Oh, it was heartbreaking. So I've spent the better part of my adulthood rebuying all my memories on eBay. So, but it's been fun too. So sometimes I'll get a figure that I remembered really wanting when I was little, but I never had it. But like maybe my friend had it, and I was always kind of envious. But now I can just buy it on eBay for like $10, and the 7-year-old inside of me is just very excited about that. So
I love that so much. When right after my daughter was born, one of the first things I did was go and rebuy the FisherPrice A-frame house on eBay,
yeah.
Because my mom had gotten rid of my toys as well. And I mean, little did your parents know, they probably could have put you through college.
Maybe I wouldn't have sold them.
Right.
They probably would have just been boxes in my parents' house for a while, and would have driven them even more angry. So I don't know, but I've been rebuying them. So I've got a lot of toys in my studio. Surround myself with the things that I love.
I love that. I think that nerds make the best authors and illustrators for sure. So how long, once you started working on Animorphs, how long did it take you to do the whole thing from starting the adaptation to putting the final touches on the color before it went to press?
It's a little fuzzy at the beginning because I had, well before the contract and all that stuff is finalized, before I should actually be working on anything, I had already read the first book, read it probably 10 or 15 times, and I had put notations in it, and I had highlighted all the dialogue, and I was already starting to break things down. So that would normally be counted in the time, but I just don't count it. But I would guess that it's probably about 9 months of work, 9 or 10 months.
All right. And do you work, like a pretty solid full day, or do you work in bursts?
It's usually a pretty solid day. And then if I start getting behind, then it becomes a pretty solid night also. Lots of coffee, lots of podcasts and music and anything else I can think of to kind of entertain me as I work. But I love it though. It's not, there's family time and there's kids when the kids get home. That's their time. And so I always I don't work when they're home or they're awake. It's not till after they go back to when they go to bed at night. That's when I'll get back on if I have to. But no, it's I love doing it. So it never really feels like work, but it does take a long time.
All right. We've got a couple of questions that actually coincide with some stuff I was going to ask. So we're going to put these up here. So Mary Elizabeth says, so I know that as of right now, it's planned for one graphic novel per book per year. Obviously impossible to do them plus the Chronicles all unless you have 60 plus years. Are there any plans to condense some of the later filler books? If there's anything, if there's even anything you're allowed to say about stuff like that.
That conversation, as far as I'm concerned, I haven't heard anything about that. I would believe though, maybe down the road, I think the first books 1 through 10, or maybe a few more, are pretty solid with like the first book, especially there was just nowhere to cut. There was nowhere to, not that I wanted to, but it was just so full. I think somewhere about the mid-teens through into some of the 20s, I think there may be potential to maybe combine some of them, or combine a few elements from a few of them to create a different story that kind of encapsulates more than one book. But up for now, I haven't heard. I don't know what the plan is. So.
All right.
I agree though. 60 years is a long time. I can't commit to 60 years.
We have a fan here who would like to know about, looks like, your work-life balance. How do you take care of your family and make your books?
Well, I get the kids on a regular school day. I'll get up and make sure that the kids are off to school in whatever fashion that takes, whether I'm taking them or they're not riding buses right now because of the COVID stuff. But so I am taking them to school, or my wife is taking one and I'm taking one. But after that, it's usually about 8:15 I start working, and sometimes I stop for lunch, other times I don't, and then I'll be done working about 3:30ish, 4. By the time the kids have been home for maybe just a little while, and I'm just wrapping up. So then we'll get to dinner, and then we'll go outside and play or do whatever we're gonna do, and then usually about 8 o'clock, kids are in bed. That's when my wife and I will sit down and watch Adult Swim or Cartoon Network for 2 to 3 hours. Probably that's pretty much the only thing I watch is cartoons. In my free time, and then if I have to work again, if I haven't done something that needs to get done, a lot of times I'll catch up with it after she goes to bed. But I try not to burn the candle at both ends too much, just because that can wear you down really fast. But there are times during production of a book like this that takes so long, and Animorphs is 230 pages, so that's 230 pages I have to sketch. Then I have to do all the inking on it. Then I have to color it, do all the word balloons and lettering. Plus, then there's edits, multiple rounds of edits. Sometimes you just have to stay up late, find some good music.
That's a really, really involved process.
It is.
Do either of your kids like to draw?
My son is really good, and that's not me as much as like a proud parent who's just like always excited about what my kids do. I mean, we've had teachers just in the last week kind of talk to us like we're dropping him off. They'll come and whisper in the car like, he's really good at drawing. And yeah, and he knows it, so don't tell him because he's already getting kind of a big head and he's only 7 years old. I think my daughter, who's older though, she seems to be more into like the design end of stuff and a little bit more into like interior design. I don't know, what she'll end up doing, but she's got some creativity there. I just don't think it's illustration.
Okay.
He's definitely going to do something with it.
That's really, really cool. Giovanni would like to know, who is your favorite character and why?
Favorite character from Animorphs?
Yeah, that's what I'm assuming.
Okay. Well, then that's always going to be Viscera 3 because I just love a very pompous, arrogant bad guy, especially one who has absolutely no right to be as confident as he is. It kind of falls back on like a lot of the 80s stuff I love, which was like Cobra Commander or Skeletor or Megatron. I mean, these guys never won any battles ever during the shows, but they'd start the next one with their next world destruction, plan, and they were just so confident all the time, and they had no successes. So I just never understood that, and I just love that. And Viscera 3 is kind of the same way. I mean, he's running the show, he's eating people and being kind of a big jerk, but ultimately it's kind of everything's kind of out of control around him, and he's not doing a very good job of taking care of it. It's basically 12-year-olds running around ruining all of his plans, and I just love that. I just love that he keeps coming back for more, and he's so angry. I just love it. I love writing it. I love drawing him.
That's fantastic. I love that. That's such a good answer. All right. So I think you're going to do a little drawing for us.
Yeah.
While Chris is doing that, if you guys have any more questions, pop those up into the feed. If you want to buy a copy of Animorphs and get a signed book plate, you can do that through our store. I'm going to pop that information back up. But in the meantime, this is always my favorite part of any event.
So I'm going to attempt to draw a very rough sketch of like Viscera 3's face here. So, and the ears are weird to me. Like I know it's in the book, they're described as like kind of like a deer, ears like a deer. So that they would hang down, kind of be kind of droopy. I know a lot of the fan fiction over the years and the fan art and stuff has had them like, kind of pointy like this. But according to the book's descriptions, that's not how they are. I know it looks cooler, but that's just not how they are. So kind of had to figure out a way to give him these floppy, deer ears and still make him look kind of angry and scary, even though he's got very cute ears.
For any nerdy artist types in the audience, can you tell us what program and tools you're using?
Yeah, this is just Photoshop. Normally, I do all my line work in a program called Clip Studio. I just feel like it's better for getting a really nice black line work. Photoshop, I do all my coloring in Photoshop though, and I'm pretty well versed in it, so I can do this tonight in this. But normally, I would do another program for it. And what I'm working on is called a Cintiq, and it allows me to just draw right on the screen, which is really nice. And I can go in here with tools, and I can rotate the image around to get, if I'd rather, work at a different angle or whatever. Doing a very poor job of showing that, but
no, that was really cool.
And that feature actually works better in the other program I was talking about, but it's okay in Photoshop. So, and this is generally kind of how I work too, is I'll do like a light sketch, and then since I mostly work digitally, I can drop down the opacity of the one below it, so I can do like more of like a final, like a black line work over my sketch. And then I'll just delete that layer underneath it. This isn't going to be my best Fisher 3, so I hope nobody's judging me.
No one's going to judge you
too hard here.
We're putting you on the spot here.
Oh, it's fine.
So how when you started, were you did you do things with paper and ink, or have you been digital a long time?
The digital thing it's funny because I was 100% traditional all through college, and I barely had a computer, all the way through college, and maybe just for like some word processing or whatever. And it wasn't until I worked at Hallmark for about 15 years, and they were still traditional for the most part when I got there in 2001. I think right after like January or February 2001 when I started, and everybody was kind of amazed that I was using a computer and like a stylus pen. And then it wasn't very long, and they started sending everybody to workshops and stuff to transition to digital because they wanted people to get away from the paint and the pens and stuff because it was just faster. It was taking too long for the process, for the release process. So, but as a result, I was 100% digital as a result of that too. So I basically had like 15 years of on-the-job training with Photoshop and Illustrator and a lot of the other programs that I still use. So that it was pretty good. But
really sounds like that was a good opportunity for you, at least learning wise, on how to do all this stuff, which is very cool.
Yeah, it was good. I tried to do as many classes as I could, and I was always really into it. There was a lot of guys and ladies who had been there forever and were quite a bit older than me and never worked on a computer before. So it was very frustrating for a lot of people who just weren't familiar or just had no interest in using a computer rather than brushes and inks and stuff and pens. And I totally understood that. But I could also see that there was just no way that it wasn't going to happen eventually anyway. So you better just kind of get on with it.
Yeah. Well, so since you're drawing, we have another drawing related question. This one's from Zach. He'd like you to, if you could talk about your process illustrating the spaceships. The designs must have seemed pretty wild from the descriptions.
They were, and I'm not prepared. If I can step away for just a minute while I talk, I want to show you guys something. I basically went in with the books and I was reading the descriptions. I highlighted as many descriptions of the books as I could from the actual text, right? Because that's what I was hired to do, was to adapt the books, not go out and look at all the or that canon over the years, 20 years, even if people had accepted them. So as that, and so what it was is I kind of looked around at what some of the canon stuff they had done with ships. But so basically, I had a really good friend of mine who, and I was going to show you guys this. I sent him descriptions and sketches like the tops and sides and backs of these ships. Trying to get a better view of it, but this is like one of the bug photos. Okay, so based on my design, and he created it in 3D, so then I could go in and open it up on the computer and rotate it around, like for a background or whatever, and until it's the right angle, and then I would just take a screenshot and then drop it into Photoshop in the background, and then when I did my final line work, I would just draw over that. So that actually kept all the ships looking really correct, I guess. Like there weren't not a lot of wonky angles and things that just didn't look right. That was a huge time saver for me, but that's kind of how I did all the ships and everything. I mean, not with this. He printed this out on his 3D printer because he just wanted to test it out. But this is pretty awesome. It's like one of my favorite.
So cool. That is really, yeah. God, I love everything about that. That is such a cool way to do it.
Yeah, it's been pretty fun. And I actually build most of the architecture, most of the buildings and things you see in there are all built in 3D first, because I'm not very good at drawing architecture that doesn't look like it's probably going to fall down at any minute without some good stuff to work over. But I'm still creating it all myself, all the buildings. I'm still building it all and doing it all, but it gives me something to draw over. And also I can, like, if like there's rooms in Jake's room, like for example, in the first book where, I mean, they're in his book a lot, like 20 pages, 25 pages, and it's always from a different angle. So I built his whole room and all the stuff in it. And then I was able to I could rotate the camera around to get any angle I needed, whether it was up or down or whatever. And everything was always where it was supposed to be. I didn't forget to draw like the alarm clock on the table because it's in the model and I can see it in the screenshot. So, but that's how I did a lot of that.
That's so cool. All right, we've got, what was the most challenging part of illustrating such a beloved series that was originally completely text-based? And since you were adapting it to a visual medium, did you ever find yourself having to tone down any of the darkness?
Oh, let's see. Okay, the most challenging part of illustrating that. I'm not sure what the most challenging part was. There was a lot of challenging parts of it, but I mean, because a lot of it was like, for example, like if you read Time Shifters or Chicken Hair or any of the other stuff I do, my own stuff, I typically shy away from stories that are heavy on architecture or live in the cities or being at a mall or going to a theme park called the Gardens that is filled with rides and animals. That was not something that I would write for myself to draw. So I had to take a deep breath, and knowing that I was going to have to draw all these pages of theme parks and zoos and all this other stuff. And so for me, that's challenging because that's not what I'm naturally good at. I think people have things that they're good at drawing and the things that they're just not good at drawing or things that they just don't enjoy so much. So for me, that's always a challenge is that. And I think it stems from just wanting to make sure it looks right, which is kind of what I was talking about with those models. It's like that helps me keep it looking right. And as far as toning down the darkness, I didn't. I tried not to. And I just kind of assumed that if I went too far, my editor, Zach at Scholastic, who's awesome, by the way, would tell me, like he would push back. Like he's like, oh, if that scene was like that, you did it as a little too rough. Like that was too much, maybe let's just hide that in a shadow or change the angle so it's not so graphic. But I never got that pushback. And I did try to be aware of like where the line is, between what's acceptable and what's going too far.
Yeah.
For an all ages stuff. And I think it helps that most of the fighting or violence or whatever happens in the book is done to the aliens and not the humans. And so when there is blood or something like that, it's not red, it's like purple or green and things like that. And I think that tends to soften it a little bit.
It gives you that remove so that it's, yeah.
And I actually did my research on the blood too. I actually was doing my Animorphs research, making sure that the aliens had the right color blood based on whatever was canon, because I didn't want to have that conversation right after the book came out. I messed up the blood color.
No, I can see where there would have been some outrage about that. So best to avoid that for sure. All right. So do you know about any free resources for anyone interested in learning to illustrate their own comics or graphic novels?
I'm not really aware of a lot of resources for that, but I mean, as far what I did and what I still do is, I mean, if you want to illustrate graphic novels and comics, I mean, you're obviously already a graphic novel and comic book fan, I'm sure on some level, and you probably have those around. And I would just say, study what you love and use that as like, a starting point for you. Like see how they do stuff. What is it that you like about the pages or the comics that you like? Is it the art? Is it the storytelling? I mean, I don't think there's any actual rules for it, I guess is what I'm trying to get at. There's no real rules. Everybody kind of does their own thing. Like I never took a formal class on how to do comics. I just wanted to do comics. So I started. And I think a lot of people do that with web comics because it's free. You can do your own web comic. You can have there's plenty of places that do like free websites that you can set up and you can just throw your stuff out there. I think that's the thing, is just getting your stuff out there and getting some feedback. And if it's good feedback, great. If it's not good feedback, well then, pay attention to the notes. And if you get some note like once or twice, then maybe that's just a personal, thing that somebody's got. But if you're hearing the same criticism over and over and over and over, then that's something that, that's something you need to address, or maybe do some more research looking around stuff. But really, I think comic books and graphic novels are a very personal thing. And I think everybody does them on their own, does them their own way, and has a different way of approaching them. I don't know if that's probably not a great answer, but like when I write, I'll I'll write like a synopsis of the story, but I don't necessarily write an entire script. I just kind of start illustrating it. I have a kind of an idea of how many pages it'll be or how long a scene might be, and I try to make sure it lands on a page. So, you know, when the page turns, maybe it's another scene. But aside from that, I just kind of start going, and think of that as like your first draft of a paper that you do in like high school or college. It's your first draft, and then you go back and you start fixing stuff and editing things and making things work better or moving a panel here and there. And I don't know, it's all subjective anyway. So just start. I think that's the best advice, is just start.
I think a lot of people, you know, it seems like when everyone likes to draw when they're a kid, and then at some point, most people get a little older and start to think that that's something that they can't do anymore. And they just stop. I hear that story over and over and over again. So it seems like, you know, continuing to do it and finding your own path is just really good advice. So thanks for that. All right. We've had a lot of interest in your shirt.
Oh, yeah.
So is your shirt referencing the sharing group in the books? Do you think that there will be any official swag to buy along with the book? Will there be prints of your art, etc.?
I don't know. I mean, I would think at some point I'll have prints back whenever we start doing conventions again and being in person. I'll always have stuff like that with me. I don't know how that works outside of meeting me in person kind of a thing, because I've never had the opportunity to have like something up on a website that's for sale or whatever. And I don't know what Scholastic does, and I certainly don't want to obligate them, you know, by giving the wrong answer. But I don't know what it is. I can say that my wife made this shirt for me, this evil shirt for me tonight. I told her what I wanted, so she's got a Cricut, so she just ironed it onto a shirt. So
that's awesome.
You know, but let's see. I don't know. I imagine that if the books sell well enough, that there'll be some kind of swag, you know, whether it be simple things like bookmarks or posters or what. I mean, what I personally would like is another round of toys, better toys, and maybe a video game, stuff like that. But again, I have no control over any of that stuff. I'm as big of a fan as you guys are, so I want all that stuff too.
So I would recommend following Chris on social media if you're interested in things like prints of his art. So that way you'll be among the first to know if he is able to make stuff like that available.
Yeah.
All right. Here is, I know Applegate used some actual scientific resources for her animal descriptions and their behaviors. Did you use any animal/scientific references for your morph designs / descriptions?
Not really. I kind of just took her lead, how she wrote. I mean, I knew that if it was a kid turning into a horse, if Cassie was turning into a horse, I mean, I know, you know, from point A to point C, and point B is where I just have to draw all the horrifying cracking bones and stretching stuff. And I just tried to make it as horrific as I could in between. So I didn't really have any references for that, but I mean, I know what a horse hoof or a leg looks like compared to a hand. So I would just try to find like something in between that looked awful, like a horse hoof with like tiny little nub fingers sticking out. And I just thought it was, you know, anytime I could do that, basically that's where I kind of cut loose and just let myself draw whatever I thought was gross and funny and, you know, disturbing, but not too upsetting. Just like really, like there was a couple of descriptions in the second book where they were turning from birds back into humans, and some of them were like their teeth were like growing on the outside of their face, I think at one point, because of the beak. And so I definitely drew that because that was awesome to me. But yeah, no, I didn't really have any references for the morphine. I did do a lot of photo reference stuff for the animals themselves, because I wanted to make sure that they didn't look right. That wouldn't work. So, you know, and I don't draw animals a lot, so I wanted to make sure that was right.
All right. Well, Zach would like to know if you know what your battle morph or your flight morph would be.
Probably a sloth, because I don't feel like I'm going to battle too much. I'd rather just hang out in the tree and or a koala or something like that. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I'm really in. I mean, after having read a lot of these books, like I just don't know. I think Marco might have been right early on about just not wanting to get involved. It's all pretty awful. But no, somebody asked me earlier, and I thought a sloth would be pretty funny.
I think that would be fantastic. If we could figure out a way to work a sloth in there, that would be awesome. Maybe a llama.
Yeah. I would just love to turn into something that would be really weird if somebody walked into their living room and it was just sitting on their couch, like chips or something. I thought a sloth would be good. Koala would be good, you know.
Absolutely. All right. Well, Sydney would like to remind us that there is a movie coming. So hopefully that means lots of merch. Movies typically mean merch. So
I hope so.
hopefully, you'll have a hand in that. That would be cool if you had some,
That would be cool, but I'm not going to hold my I'm just happy to be part of it. So.
Well, it seems like a really cool world to be part of. Do you, so the second book, is that slated to come out just about a year from now? I'm
guessing that it's going to be like an annual release.
Okay.
So probably about the same time next year and then the following year. And if there's more books down the road, I'm currently doing like 2 graphic novels a year, but I'm splitting between this and another series right now. But there's, potentially when that other series is done, and if Scholastic wanted to do more, I could probably do more than one a year. But it's, again, I don't know what their marketing plan is or what what they want to do with it. So,
and it's apparently going to be live action, actually.
Yeah.
All right. Ed would like to know, and if you've seen the TV show and if you enjoyed it, if you have.
Yes, I've seen the show. I actually bought season 1 and 2 on iTunes while I was doing the color for book 1 because I needed something new to watch. Because I don't know if you can see behind me, like this is where I work. And this screen, I have an image up there right now, but this is normally where I watch Netflix or whatever I'm doing while I'm working. But yeah, I was watching season 1 of that show, and it's not good. It's not good. It's charming though, in a very bizarre 90s way. And you could tell that they had enough budget to either make a show or get like an extra value meal at McDonald's. So they chose to make the episodes a couple times because, man, the Andalites are just awful. But it's still, I find it charming, and I still keep watching it, even though I'm looking at this thing going, what is happening? So I did enjoy it. It's like watching kind of a bad movie that it's so bad it's good.
So many of those cartoons.
And now looking back, it's like technology's changed. Yeah.
So many of the cartoons we grew up with, when you rewatch those, they're just terrible. But somehow you can't look away. It's that sort of affectionate, horrified nostalgia.
Yeah, and I do. I bought the seasons, and I didn't just stop at season 1. I bought season 2 after I finished season 1, so I fully knew what I was getting into by buying the but I love it. I love it. I love everything about Animorphs. So, and I'm very grateful to the fans for kind of sticking with it and kind of championing it for so long because, these books were done in 2001, and it is still a thing today. There's still a huge fan base. And if they hadn't done that, then I wouldn't be able to be doing what I'm doing right now, which is so incredibly satisfying and fun. So it's just been great. I love everything about it.
I think when we're all able to do in-person events again, I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised. Not surprised. You're just going to be happy when you meet these fans in person and you see how awesome they are. We've met a lot of them at Catherine, doing other events with Catherine, and it's just such a great group of people.
I can't wait.
They'll bring their fan art to show you, and sometimes they come in costume, and it's really a great group.
That's okay. I love that stuff.
I'm happy for you that you're a part of that world now. I think that's really cool.
I'm really excited. I'm kind of bummed out about all the COVID stuff this year, stopping all the conventions, because I was so excited about having the book come out and having people come to talk about it, because I don't know. I've been reading the books, and I'm getting pretty steeped in all the lore and the backstories and stuff. And I don't have, my wife doesn't want to hear about Elfangor's background and where he came from and what he did. She doesn't care. But so I was really looking forward to having these conversations with the fans and stuff, people who also know the stuff, and we can make jokes and just talk about whatever. But looks like it's going to be a little while longer. We'll get there though.
Yeah, we'll get there. We'll get there. It's nice to know it'll be waiting for us when we're back. Well, I think that's all we have time for tonight. It was such a pleasure to meet you, Chris. I'm so glad that we were able to do this. Since we're on basically two sides of the same state, I'm, really excited for the eventual time we can do an event in person. We can bring you out to St. Louis and and do one of those big fandom events. But I hope that this is hugely successful. I hope that there are 60 more. I think that would be amazing. You could just, have a long career doing Animorphs and all your other stuff. I'm excited for the rest of your books to come out. And I hope that you continue to have great success. And I really appreciate your coming online with me tonight.
Well, thanks for having me. It was fun. It's been a really fun day.
If anybody would like to buy a copy of Animorphs with a signed book plate, you can do that from the link that I've put up in the banners several times. Or if you haven't been able to copy that, just go to thenovelneighbor.com and we will take care of you. If you did buy a book, those will be shipped out in the next 2 days. So look for that package in the mail. Thank you all for joining us tonight, and I wish you all the very best and have a great rest of your week.
Bye, guys.